corn oil in it,
Or you
and it's got glucose or.
I gave mine up.
I have food sensitivities,
Thank you, Carl.
so I have to be very careful what I eat.
Not even a thing.
Oh, yeah.
No, I said I wouldn't. Because I eat a lot of, I eat a lot of stuff with gluten in it. I love bread. Oh, I do too. I love bread too.
Yeah.
Yes, bread is actually, I would probably give up meat before I give up bread. I think I would give up meat before I would give up bread. Well, I have to give up.
And big buns.
You can't have a hamburger either. If I do, when I do, I cut it in half so that I don't eat as much. Because it's all about quantity too. It's too much of it, oversensitized. I've met people who have had really weird.
We've had reps that were done by one installer. We've had reps that were done by a whole team.
I'm glad my daughter's talking about the test. It's a blood test, you know, and they test you for all kinds of sensitivities. Like you can't eat cauliflower, but I, you know, it's. Yeah. And you know what's funny is like, I grew up with
certain places, they put them in certain places, and then they spit it and nobody trim on it. No one. My sister had that every day in the cafeteria.
Yeah, I think I don't know why.
So she was born in '82, so like '70s,
Yeah,
'80s.
something in the product changed in your generation that, I don't know, I've never heard of food allergies. Well, and I think, well, I was the generation, I don't want to lump in my generation. No, I think I am. You can. They don't eat as much processed. I've never had it was a newer thing that I had. Good, how are you?
I tell you, I really like your sleeves.
Oh, thank you.
You know, standing, you're very confident and flowy. Oh, wrinkles, so easy. It looks like it's supposed to be like that. Maybe I don't know. You can just run it in the dryer and release the wrinkles. You're probably hard to hide.
Yeah.
At that time, do I have to wait till exactly?
Downstairs. I watch one.
We're not ready yet.
We don't. More people and.
Yeah, Kimberly Short is attending. And then I'm not sure, I didn't hear from Senator Barker or Delegate Guzman, so if one of them shows up, that's fine.
No.
It's like, you wear the, I don't know if you wear the white or I like I'm sorry, I didn't brush your teeth. Yeah. I can't spend too much time. I know. See, I'm just saying, you know. I'll do that. Everyone that takes maybe a half hour. And then for during the live, you just pre-order this. So here's the form.
I got it.
Hi, Kim, how are you doing? Is there an ice cream in there?
It's the freezer in the break room. There's a scoop in there.
Gone in the last 2 years. We have one more at home. There you go. We're gonna be very safe.
That might be my youngest one. She's a little out there. My daughter knows already.
All right. And we're off. Good evening, everyone. I want to call the PRTC Commissioners meeting to order. 1900 hours, 7 p.m. Go right in there. No, PRTC is live streaming the meeting on PRTC's YouTube channel. The information was posted on PRTC's website, Facebook page, and at both facilities. Mr. Brian Lord, if you could give us a safety and security a message.
Yes, thank you all. So in light of it being September and that's emergency and National Preparedness Month, just wanted to remind everybody to make sure that, oh no, you're fine. Make sure that you familiarize yourself with emergency exits whenever you enter a facility. Make sure that you have your individual family plans as well as your staff, but also have your own individual plan. Because as we know, we do have plans on the wall, things like that. But at the same time, if you know you're familiar with the buildings and get your own plan together, then you'll be way more safe that way. In addition to that, I've asked Christine if she can share a link for you all. And if you don't mind, please sending it out to your constituents. It's a great website, the ready.gov has a bunch of toolkits. Thank you, Joe, for that. And you know, if you all can share that with on your platforms, that would be very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. Appreciate that. Okay, let us all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And you can please call the roll.
Victor Angry,
Here.
Andrea Bailey, Kenny Bodie, Margaret Franklin.
Here.
Janine Lawson. Here. Bob Weir, Karen Mills.
Here.
Kim Short. Here. Yesley Vega, Ann Wheeler, Tanisha Allen, Monica Gary.
Here.
Meg Bonke, Pamela Young, Pamela Sadesky, Ralph Smith,
Here.
Jeanette Rischel,
Here.
Alana Mensing, Daryl Moore, Matthew Kelly, Jason Graham, Deborah Frazier.
Here.
Lori Hayes, Tim McLaughlin, David Ross, Jennifer DeBrule, Todd Horsley.
Here.
Grant Sparks, Elizabeth Guzman, and George Parker. Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you, ma'am. So we're gonna change up just a little bit here, and we have a special presentation. So we have a legend amongst us today, and that is the daughter of Miss Lizzie Johnson, Miss Cassandra Johnson. If you can come forward. And so what we got here is, I'm gonna just give a quick little story, and I guess we'll do that over here. Come on up here, I'm gonna give and thank you for bringing the photo. So maybe there are some still on the commission or a part of PRTC that knows Miss Johnson, Lizzie. She was very instrumental in Omni Ride buses. And so literally, I'm gonna let you say a little bit, but because she can tell the story better than I can. And so what we wanted to do is really honor all of her efforts. And then I'm gonna say a little more after I just go ahead and let you, Cassandra, tell about all the wonderful things that she did and how we got to where we are today because of your mother.
Okay, I'm gonna share a picture of my mother here. Again, her name is Lizzie Johnson. I know we may have a brand new group of people here today, but my mother moved to Woodbridge in the early 90s. She was a retired federal government employee. She was still working for the federal government when she first moved here. But my mom has never driven, has never had a driver's license. So she's always depended on public transportation. She moved to DC in the late 60s. And as you all are aware, that was during the civil rights movement, things were still going on, but she moved to DC and was dependent on transportation systems such as Metro, which we know is pretty expansive and has evolved over the years. Fast forward, moving to Woodbridge in the 90s, and at that time there was transportation service going into DC to the Pentagon. Some services limited, but has grown over the years, but local services was very, I don't even know that we even had local services at that time. Eventually, my mother retired from federal services and took on a position working for the county at ACTS. She was working for domestic violence shelter. So she was being an advocate for those women who were seeking to leave from violent situations and knowing that they needed to be rescued and move into self-sufficiency. And part of that was having transportation to build a new life. Living in a shelter that was hidden from the public awareness, but they needed to be able to get out to get their kids to school, to go to jobs, to get to groceries or whatever it was that they needed. So my mother began to not only seek out transportation for her own personal needs, but also to be an advocate for these women who needed to start all over again. So thus began her fight to ask for more transportation, to ask for bus stops once the transportation began to get expanded, to also begin to think about the fact that there were people working in the county that may not have had transportation, may not have been able to afford transportation, but they were serving the community, working in our restaurants, working in the mall. But transportation may not have been available on a regular basis. Maybe the mall, they got off later from the mall, but the buses stopped running before they got off from work. So that's when she began her push. She had 2 rounds of petitions that she had signed. She went around asking for petitions to be signed initially for expanded local services when it was limited. I think that first round happened in the early 2000s. Then some years later, she came back and said, hey, I think we can go a step further. We need expanded services for people that still don't have transportation, but they need to get to like Springfield Metro Station. We need expanded services for people that want to get to church on Sundays. I go to church on Sundays. So my mom went around, she went on foot, she went on the buses, all of the local buses, she would get on the buses and most people knew her, the drivers knew her, the passengers knew her. And she collected thousands of signatures from passengers. From the, she went around the mall. She went to all of the local churches and had parishioners, pastors. They got on board and collected signatures and asked for Sunday services. Today, my mother has Alzheimer's disease. She can no longer ride the buses, but I know the day that I saw on Facebook the Sunday services had started, I went to my mom and said, guess what? Sunday services are finally here. And she said, oh my God, thank you, thank you. I am so happy, I am so happy. And I'm honored to say that when I saw that, I was able to go on the initial Sunday service and ride the bus in her honor. So I'm just so grateful. I know there may be still a ways to go, but the fact that we have come this far, we are just so grateful. And I wouldn't be naive to say that it was just her doing, but I'm just so grateful that she was able to be one of the pioneers to just reach out and not be afraid to say, we need this for the people of this county, and that this board and you all as elected officials and everyone that works here were able to just see this through, and all of the effort that you all will continue to see through to make sure that the needs are met of the people that need the transportation. It's desperately needed. So we thank you. And we thank you for this honor.
Sandra and I met at Palazzo Building in passing. I think that was on my election.
Yes, there's transportation summit.
Yes, there's transportation summit, and we had a brief talk about this, and then we began the conversation of trying to name a building or something, or a park bench or something after a mother, which, you know, naming structures has become a thing of an issue, as you well know. But that's not to say it couldn't be done. But what we were able to do is present a proclamation, which I want to read here today to everyone and to you, and then present this to you. So proclamation in honor of Miss Lizzie Marie Johnson. Whereas Miss Lizzie Marie Johnson has been a resident of Prince William County since 1995 and an avid rider and advocate for the bus services provided by the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission. And whereas her dedication to public transportation included collecting signatures on petitions to demonstrate public support for expanded bus services. And whereas her advocacy benefited residents of Prince William County and the surrounding jurisdiction. And whereas we, the members of the Board of Commissioners, wish to extend our sincerest appreciation for her efforts to improve our area's public transportation services. Now therefore be it resolved that the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission hereby recognizes and extends its sincerest appreciation to Lizzie Marie Johnson for her work to encourage and generate public support for expanded OmniRide transportation services.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, while, this may be official, what we're doing, oh, no, and this is our executive director.
Mom too. So
That's right, come on, we got one more.
Other goodies.
That's right.
This is all for her.
Wow, thank you so much.
So when I heard that her mother really last thing was about Sunday service, I was thinking, because we can't officially do anything, but unofficially we can do a lot. And I'm unofficially calling Sunday service Lizzie service. Okay? So let that stick, and maybe in the future, that stick enough to where that'll change and be recognized for that. So I want to thank her again for everything she's done and for you being here to share that story, because Alzheimer's is nothing to mess with, and I really hate that she's going through that. I really still want to meet her, and we're going to meet.
Sure.
And so I want to thank you for being here on her behalf. And your neighbor who knows this story
Yes.
just as much.
Yes, and her mom, Miss Roberta, I thank Miss Roberta for being here. Her mother, the same. She was working for X. They rode the buses together. Her mother did not drive. God rest her soul, her mother just passed away. She could have been here. She signed the petitions too. If her mother could have been here today, I believe she would be sitting here on my mother's behalf as well. Because she just passed away on August 8th. So I thank her daughter for being here, not just for my mom, but in her mom's memory, because she needed the services as well and was out there signing the petitions.
Okay, how about this? You hold the proclamation, I'll hold your mom's picture, I'll hold the basket. How about that? Yeah.
All right, on the count of three. 1, 2, 3.
So do you have the perseverance of your mother?
I believe I had that honestly.
She
so-
handed that down to you?
Yes, and my mom lives with me, so it's an honor to be able to take care of her with that same spirit. So I thank God for trusting me with that.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to note that Commissioner Allen joined us during the presentation. So she is, we need to do a resolution or a motion for her.
To be remote, okay. Commissioner Allen, are you online? This is where I asked her reason for being remote.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Commissioner
Yeah.
Allen?
Yes,
Yes. Can you state your reason for remote participation?
my mother was released from the hospital with blood clots, so I'm home taking care of her.
Okay, really sorry to hear that. So I need a motion, is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I move that we allow remote participation by Commissioner Allen.
okay. We've got a motion by Commissioner Bodie, second by Commissioner Short. All in favor? Well, I mean, I guess we.
Victor Angry,
Aye.
Kenny Bodie,
Aye.
Margaret Franklin,
Aye.
Janine Lawson,
Aye.
Karen Mills,
Aye.
Kim Short, Tanisha Allen,
Aye.
Monica Gary,
Aye.
Ralph Smith,
Aye.
Jeanette Rishel,
Yes.
Deborah Frazier,
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that motion's approved.
Thank you, ma'am. And now I'll need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. You have those?
I got
Commissioner
Gary
Gary,
and
Commissioner Rishel.
You just beat me to
Finance
Okay,
are you ready?
yeah,
Victor Angry,
aye.
Kenny Bodie,
it. Aye.
Margaret Franklin, Janine Lawson,
Aye.
Karen Mills, Kim Short, Tanisha Allen,
Aye.
Monica Gary,
Aye.
Ralph Smith,
Yes.
Jeanette Rishel,
Yes.
Deborah Frazier,
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that motion's approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I need a motion to approve the, minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay.
Frazier.
Yes, and voting. We have motion properly seconded. And I think, is there any discussion on that? No? Okay, any comments? None? Okay.
Victor Angry.
Aye.
Kenny Bodie.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Abstain.
Karen Mills. Kim Short.
Abstain.
Tanisha Allen.
Aye.
Monica Gary.
Aye.
Ralph Smith.
Yes.
Jeanette Richel.
Yes.
Deborah Frazier.
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that motion's approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Dalton, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, commission members and others. Just to be concise here, you do have information in your packet, I believe, from our July operations board meeting. Of course, we didn't have one in August, but just to recap, the month of July and the month of August, I'll just kind of combine those together. Those were difficult months, if you will, for us from a system reliability standpoint. We had some major, or our host railroads had some major events, if you will, that negatively affected our reliability. Amtrak, for example, had a derailment in the tunnel at Union Station in July. Norfolk Southern had a major system outage in August. And in between all that, of course, we're dealing with, weather-related events and heat-related events. So, but all in that, I mean, and our ridership stayed pretty much on par. We did see a little uptick in August, even though our reliability was down. And unfortunately, we already had a couple of major incidences that affect reliability in September as well. So all of that to say, we're working obviously closely with our host railroads. We're on the phone, or we have calls with them daily. Everybody's focused to get that system reliability back up. I will also point out that that also affects Amtrak trains as well, everything that I just described there. So also just wanted to point out that in keeping with the safety and security theme, the week of September 18th is Rail Safety Week. And so you'll see, likely to see in some of your jurisdictions, our staff, our partners at our host railroads, working in conjunction with your local law enforcement, and we'll be doing some crossing blitzes. And that's something that we've done in the past. We go out to railroad crossings and basically interact in a very safe way with folks coming across rail crossings and spread information out to them as it relates to safe operation on or around the roads. National, and this is a national effort. I'll just say nationally, we're still dealing with a very unfortunate statistic that every 3 hours, a person or a vehicle is struck by a train. And so we want to continue to work to drive that down, right? It's worse in other areas, if you will, in the region. We're fortunate here, at least in our service area, that we don't have as many at grade road crossings, but in some cases, one's too many. So I just wanted to point that out. We'll be putting out more information at the next week's VRE Operations Board meeting. I'll give some more definitive information, location, times, that kind of stuff, and share that with the operations board, in addition to my weekly report that I share with everybody. So with that, Mr. Chair, that's the end of my report, but it is September. And while most people have been enjoying the summer months, we have been preparing a preliminary budget for next fiscal year. And so as we do every September, we come to you and just give you a little snapshot of what we're doing. Again, the presentation and the discussion that we had with the VRE Operations Board at our July meeting is in your packet. So with that, our CFO, Mark Schofield's here. He's just going to give a couple of minute overview. And of course, this just begins the ongoing discussion throughout the rest of the calendar year. So with that, Mr. Schofield.
Thank you, Rich, and good evening, commission members. Yes, just to reiterate what that schedule looks like for VRE and then what that means for the commission. We'll be presenting our preliminary budget to the operating board next week. We'll have some more discussions throughout October, November, and then we'll come to the operations board in December with our recommended budget. What that means for the commissions is we'll be back in front of you next month, again with that preliminary budget, and then hopefully we'll be with you in
January to get your approval on the recommended budget. We can go into more detail next month. I want to highlight 3 things that I think are going to be most of interest to you all with the VRE budget for fiscal year 25. One is that we are going to take our first major step towards the promise of TRV, Transforming Rail in Virginia. We are going to be planning for the introduction of VRE service on the weekend, on Saturdays. We are working right now with Keolis and with our host railroads on how to make that happen in the most efficient and effective way. But we are very excited to begin heading down that road, not just doing the commuter rail service, but beginning to expand into the other markets that are there in the region. Number 2 is changing the fares that are charged to the passengers. Because of the pandemic, it will have been 5 years since we had any changes to the fares. Because of inflation in that time, we've lost almost 20% of our purchasing power. But at the same time, we don't want to turn off new customers. So we're going to be trying to find that right sweet spot of how do we raise the fares without turning off the customers. And we'll be doing a big public participation blitz when we do that. And then the third thing is really how do we achieve a balanced budget once we have the passenger money from all the other revenues that we have, whether that's your jurisdictional contributions, whether that's the new state dedicated money that we have coming out of the Mass Transportation Fund, or whether that's, again, how do we use the rest of the pandemic relief money that we have and stretch that out as long as possible. So we'll be talking about all those issues plus a few other good ones, and but I'd be happy to take any questions that you have right now.
All right. Well, thanks for that prelude. It's the what's to come. All right. Any questions, comments? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Thank you, Mr. Schofield. So a couple of questions. Mr. Schofield, you mentioned TRV and Virginia Passenger Railway Authority and that sort of ongoing effort to improve reliability, improve services, what have you, to some of the service and reliability issues that Mr. Dalton spoke to earlier. Or some of the capital projects that are being done under TRV going to help us have a more resilient railway system to address some of those issues in the future?
Absolutely. I'll speak a little bit and then Rich, if you want to jump in. Sure. I think, some of the challenges that we've been having recently have been up at Union Station, where obviously we're trying to work with Amtrak on getting those resolved. But long-term, the promise of TRV is to have essentially freight and passenger rail operating on distinct tracks. And that, in terms of reducing the congestion, reducing the interactions between the trains, that is really the promise for both adding the capacity and improving the reliability. Yeah, I don't have anything to add, to be honest with you.
Appreciate that. And if I could, Mr. Chairman, and follow-up question, in terms of some that you all touched on, which is, unfortunately, we have incidents of people and motorists getting struck by trains. I know that over the last year, say 2-3 years, we've talked a lot more about safety and the well-being of folks in and around our transit networks, as opposed to just reliability and getting people from place to place quickly. That being said, knowing and having that data that you all are tracking now in terms of those accidents and those tragedies, is there going to be a shift? And I guess part of this is also a question for my colleagues on the VRE board towards asking for more money to the General Assembly for safety related projects versus just, the general transit frequency and whatnot.
I can probably answer part of that, but for example, there were federal dollars made available to effectively enhance grade crossings. Both on the signalization side, and if you're all familiar with, grade crossing arms, a lot of the grade crossings are moving to what we call quad gates instead of single arm apparatuses. And so, just for example, the federal government did make some money available. The Commonwealth of Virginia did. They were successful in partnership with CSX to be awarded some of that money. And I believe, and that was for a statewide effort, but I believe there is a rail or a grade crossing, maybe in Stafford County, that was on that list to actually get upgraded and stuff. So that's, yes, that is, and I think what most folks, particularly CSX, is doing, and again, we don't have, like on our Fredericksburg line, we operate over 55 miles and there's only 9 grade crossings, okay? So they try to statistically pick out the ones that have the higher frequency rate. So that's how they came up with the one in this Stafford County. But nonetheless, it's being very data driven, getting at the most problematic areas first, and of course, based on the available funding. So
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that presentation, gentlemen, okay? And moving on, so public comment time. Do we have any in-person speakers? And do we have any emails or?
Mr. Chairman, 3 people submitted comments. They were all related to requests for additional service. And staff has responded and those replies are in front of everyone's seat.
All right, thank you for that, ma'am, thank you. So consent agenda, we have 1 item on consent. I need a motion.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, got a motion, Commissioner Bodie, second. All right, there you go, Commissioner Barker, second. Please call for the vote.
Victor Angry.
Aye.
Kenny Bodie.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson. Karen Mills. Kim Short. Tanisha Allen.
Yes.
Thank you. Monica Gary.
Aye.
Ralph Smith.
Yes.
Jeanette Rischel.
Yes.
Deborah Frazier.
Yes.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
George Barker.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion's approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner, excuse me, Dr. Snyder, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Changing order a little bit from what's here, just for flow, a couple of items. Car-free day is September 22nd. Christine will send out some different graphics to you. So just look for that tomorrow. And that you can share with your constituents, et cetera, to experience leaving the keys behind. Walk, bike, carpool if you must. It's supposed to be car-free day, so no car is better, but sometimes those options, and of course, trying out transit. Christine will also be sending information to add to your calendars for the NDTC, PRTC, VRE Joint Legislative Forum. It's on Friday, December 1st. Again, usually it's on a Monday, but this year it's going to be on a Friday. And of course, we'll have all the information and we'll run the shuttle as we always do from this location up to there, et cetera. If the commission, one thing I want to mention, if the commission does approve the action item to hold the public hearings for the new I-95 express service in Fredericksburg, the staff has already secured time and place for that, and that'll go out to you immediately thereafter with the information. Just letting you know, it's not a guessing game of when that will be. We have that information and we can share that with the public. We definitely want their input for these new services. There's an included article in the packet about Art in Transit, and Perrin did a fantastic write-up of our own program and the partnership we have with Keep Princely and Beautiful, and it includes pictures of our now 7 different Art in Transit shelters and locations. A reminder, these are not new shelters installed, but ones that we've gone into an existing area, identified an opportunity to just give it some beautification throughout the county, as well as in the town of Dumfries and city of Manassas, and are placed on existing shelters to bring vibrancy to the infrastructure. We've had a reduction in actual trash around the area, and we've had 0 vandalism, which if we took bets on it, we just would have guessed. But so far, 0 vandalism, and the art is beautiful. If you have not had the chance to go see it, at a minimum, look through the pictures in the board packet, because the pictures are absolutely stunning, and it's really, really wonderful to have that. Ridership is growing. Local bus service continues to do very well. We had a August 21st service change, very few complaints, probably our best service change in recent memory. Operators did a fantastic job. That is usually when the mistakes happen. They're used to turning left or turning right, or they were on this run and you've been doing the same thing for 4 months. You suddenly forget and start doing something. Now they did a fantastic job, as did the entire operations maintenance team. That service change included our first ever Saturday service in Manassas Park, which is wonderful. Preliminary ridership on that August 26th shows that first Saturday was about 60% of average weekday. That tells you how much pent up demand there is for that service in that area. And as we've seen when we added our Sunday service in Eastern Prince William, our Saturdays increased and our weekdays are increasing. So we're continuing to see that growth in ridership, and hopefully we'll see that sustained growth. Preliminary commuter ridership for August showed no signs of decline with the new fare increase that went from $6.90 with the Smart Trips card to $9. In particular, August 29th had the highest ridership for the entire month. Pre-pandemic, that never would have happened. Pre-pandemic, that was our lowest ridership because that's when the Smart Trips card and the Smart Benefits were running out. This is the indicator that we're collecting more revenue and it's not having a detrimental effect on passengers receiving the Smart Benefits. Those who don't have the Smart Benefits, we are about to go live. We already have the unlimited purchase option available for past programs, so we're about to make it more live and go more robust in terms of the marketing for that program. So with more people returning to the office, more ridership, buses are getting fuller capacity, which is good. As you recall, we've adjusted services more and more to match ridership demand, being very mindful of budget, but we've also done enhancements as well. So it's not just a decrease, we're actually increasing and closely monitoring those items. As a matter of fact, as an aside, the planning team is going into DC to do stop level analysis, and we're starting to survey passengers. Yes, this is where we've stopped, but where do you work? Are we still going the right way? Are we routing the correct way? So we're doing a lot more field observation in that way to do better for our customers. Of course, our reliability and vehicle availability drastically improved, and customer complaints have dropped as well due to the hard work by our Keolis to get service turned around. And 2 slides I want to show you to help underscore the performance. The first one is missed trips. So as you see in purple, those were the missed trips in 2022, and then the blue shows missed trips in the same period in 2023. It's a 92% decrease in the number of missed transit trips in the last 60 days, in essence, for July and August. So June obviously had 254, almost not quite double, but 100 more than the prior year. So this was great to see. And as an aside with that, a couple of things. The supervisor at the Pentagon, we had field staff up there, made the comment that even passengers are saying to her, wow, you guys are a lot more reliable. We thank you. It's not just anecdotal. Our field observation team was up at the Pentagon. There was a particular window, the 9 buses came through. All 9 buses were scheduled and all of them were exactly on time. So we're hitting the service parameters that our customers are expecting that we're publishing in the schedule. And that's good. And that's what we want. So we're glad to see that. The next slide. Improvement, but is not where we want to be. We'll definitely see an improvement on the first chart, which is vehicle availability. It's a percentage of fleet on the ready line. That's it. If there's 100 buses out there, how many of them are ready to go for service today? You want that to be the largest amount possible. Now, reality is there's an accident, there's brake jobs, a tire gets blown, there's an engine. So it's not going to be 100% unless you have an entirely brand new fleet. But to have not close to 90% vehicle availability is excellent. One trend that we're still not where we want to be, and Keolis is working on this, is the miles between road calls. That can be a road call that isn't even in revenue service. So this may not be a service interruption, but we don't care because that means maintenance had to go out and address something in the field and in the fleet. Service interruptions has radically improved, so we don't have anywhere near the number of service interruptions, but that can be a number that if you look at it gives you a halcyon view. We want to have a more critical eye toward these things, and so they're going to continue to make improvements in that area. Last summer saw the more serious decline, and Keolis was working to restore to a higher standard. As this continues, it will continue to be monitored and improved, and then additional areas will receive attention. Recognition goes to the entire Keolis team, starting with the operators, quite frankly. They're the ones who have really made the turnaround on some of the performance issues, done a great job also from the entire Keolis team, including the interim general manager, Ms. Tricia Mumford, who you met briefly in July. The performance improvement is there in the data. And Tricia, you have any comments or any questions from the commission? We're both happy to answer.
No, if anyone has any questions, I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have in reference to the service. Our service improvement, we have an excellent team here at PRTC, and our goal is safe, reliable transportation every single day. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions for me or not. Does anyone ride the service? Did they get their free water? Did they get their water bottles? Yes, sir.
I didn't have any questions, but thank you for where we are. This is good. So
yeah, just as a reference, what that is with it being so hot, Keolis took it on themselves and went out and started providing water to everybody at the Pentagon platform, and then a supervisor patrolling the lot out front, making sure people are staying hydrated, not just employees, but passengers, really trying to keep attention on that. So thank them for that extra work.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes.
With that, Mr. Chair.
Good, all right. And we have no presentations. That's it, nice. So we have, what, 2 action items? Dr. Sunny, you want to give us a brief description of those 2, and then we'll package those together.
Item 11.1, for those who are able to read the news about the FedEx extension, and let's see the ribbon cutting, if you were here earlier, the pictures, et cetera. DRPT would like to have us participate in a grant project. I think, Todd, do you want to fill in any more of the toll pay revenue? And this is that CTV's approved. Sure. The project, great description on your end from the state, but.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared, although I pulled it up. There is a new program, or it's not really new anymore, but it's the Interstate Operations Enhancement Program. So Parker may know about it. It provided some additional money for some additional funding for some new transit routes on several of the interstates in the Commonwealth, including I-95. And so there's 3 particular grants. Actually, there's 4, but there's 3 new routes that have been funded for OmniRide that will operate from the, I won't go into specifics on the exits because that might still be being discussed, but it's basically a new route from another route from Stafford County, or a new route from around the Fredericksburg area, and then Spotsylvania County as well. So
it's a DRPT funded program in partnership. This has been about a year in the planning and discussion, and now we're ready to go to public hearing. This is a DRPT grant, no localized funding, no funding request from Prince William, Stafford, Spotsylvania, or Fredericksburg, or Manassas. Manassas is part of it. They're on not quite on the corridor.
It is grant funding, but it is going to be time limited when it's gone. There's no replacement money.
So a couple of things with this is we'll apply for the full amount, but we deduct off the fares. So a really great example of this is we started a Haymarket route way back when, and that was actually profitable. We I think drew down $7,000 total in the first year because it was a profitable route. So there's an example is if the ridership does its job, this will extend for multiple years of funding. In addition, it is part of the corridor of I-95, so it could be eligible for possibly for the 395 funds there. So then as those funds start to deplete, we would then apply for the grant to continue with NVTC funds. So this is good, and we're able to get it going day one with the state. And then if it performs and does its job, we move it over to the toll payer. And that's who would provide the funding for it. So that's the expectation. This is not to approve it, but to simply go to public hearing. So that's the first item. And I just wanted to go a little bit more in detail on that one simply because the funding piece is a little bit tricky and confusing on that. The other item is our elevator. It's old and we need a new one. It's so old that the parts are no longer readily made. And so it exceeds my spending authority. We want to obviously have a safe elevator, lots of new features, all those exciting things. So we can talk extensively about elevator questions if you wish.
Is it, Mr. Chairman, is it ADA required that we
Yes.
have one?
ADA required, and there's new safety features. And so if we were to just have it repaired, we're going to run into parts availability over time. But there's also new safety features that have been introduced, new electrical systems, panels, et cetera.
Do we have a capital reserve account for this building?
Somewhat. We depleted a big chunk of it getting the stormwater system redone. And then also we're doing the fuel tank. So we're depleting it pretty quickly. We had a more robust plan to rebuild capital reserves. Pandemic kind of took a hit on that. So it just.
So what do you mean by somewhat? Like, give me a dollar amount.
Phil, Joyce, do you happen to know the dollar amount off the top of your head?
Well, our overall reserve is about 17 million. That's operating reserve. That's operating.
So we have a $17 million operating reserve. So that's what we would use in terms of crisis. And let's say fuel jumps to $8 a gallon.
$17 million
$17 million operating reserve. That is a 3-month operating reserve, yes. And then for capital, what we do is we.
So not a capital reserve, an operating reserve.
We had we started to build a capital reserve, but that got depleted due to the pandemic. We started to actually fund the depreciation of assets year over year,
Okay.
so that we would then be able to have that when the pandemic hit. We stripped that out of the budget.
Where'd you spend it on?
Operating expenses,
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
just to survive the pandemic.
Okay,
And then for capital reserve, what we do is
even though COVID funds came from DC and.
and then just extended the dollars on the back
Okay,
end.
so if capital reserve sounds like it's down.
correct.
fair to say. So will the elevator be paid for out of the operating reserve?
We budgeted that for this fiscal year. Is there a state percentage or is it 100% out of our
It's 68% state.
68% state funded to the residual 32? Is it federal or is it?
It's local and it's included in the 24 budget.
So it's included in the budget. 68% state funded for capital.
Okay, so it's already covered in,
Oh, yes, it's already included in the budget, yes.
okay, good.
Just FYI, I have one of those old elevators in my school. A student got stuck on it. And when that happens, you can't necessarily go through the door. You have to go to the top of the elevator and then come down in.
And that's called a firefighter. That's very, you ever been a firefighter? Ain't nobody else going down there shooting.
Yeah, we had to
And if
get
you've
a
ever been
whole
stuck in an elevator,
team.
5 minutes seems like 5 years.
Yeah.
And they panic.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not arguing that we need an
Right.
elevator, I just wanna know how you're
How
gonna
we
pay
gonna-
for
Oh,
it.
yeah, the question was on the
Yeah.
capital reserve
And
budget.
we have old elevators at the courthouse that have been very problematic
They
for
need
the
to close those.
courthouse, which is 3 or 4 stories. And transport inmates, and when there's an elevator breakdown, that's a problem. So I'm not suggesting that we not replace it, I just wanna know how you're gonna pay for it.
We included it in our budget that you approved back in June. And so these are part of expected, anticipated, programmed and budgeted upgrades. Yeah, so this wasn't a surprise to us. It wasn't.
Yeah, but there's a $17 million operating reserve.
Correct.
Good to know.
And on that, can I get a motion
Motion to.
for both of these?
Especially the first one.
You want, I like to combine them, or you wanna go to these separate? If everybody's in agreement with them, we can just combine them as one motion.
I'm good combining it.
Okay, all right, so you do the motion, okay?
Good question.
And then, were you the second? Okay, Gary second. Any discussion? Yes.
Very quickly, to go back to the first one, I really like this. One is DRPT's money and not ours, right? So, but secondly, now that those lanes have been extended down, it's a perfect time to look into this, right? Because we want to make sure as much as possible, we have folks jumping in buses and not their cars to traverse up the corridor. Because I know there's tons of people that drive up from Spotsy, from Culpeper, from Stafford, and they park and then park in our commuter lots to jump on a VRE train or a bus to then go up the rest of the way, or they just drive the whole way there. So this is a really great way to expand that. So we have less people jumping in their cars, to go through and to Prince William County to then use transit there. So I really appreciate this.
Ditto.
Any more questions? Yes.
Cooper Angry.
Aye.
Kenny Bodie.
Aye.
Margaret Franklin.
Aye.
Janine Lawson.
Aye.
Karen Mills. Kim Short.
Yes.
Tanisha Allen.
Hi.
Monica Gary.
Aye.
Ralph Smith.
Yes.
Jeanette Richel.
Yes.
Deborah Frazier.
Aye.
Todd Horsley.
Yes.
George Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that motion is approved.
Thank you, ma'am. And just moving into chairman's time. So commissioners, next month, we're gonna be looking to elect or appoint some of you all to the legislative committee. Okay, so expect that coming up in October. And also the legislative agenda will be approved at the November meeting in preparation for the annual legislative forum on December 1st. Okay, and that is it for me. Commissioners' time. We will start right here. Yes, sir. Oh, I have no, yeah, okay.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report other than I haven't been around since, I think, May, so to see everybody. I missed June and July, I know that.
Pass.
Pass.
I'm just gonna say one thing. And then I think that was a beautiful presentation we just did for Miss Lizzie Johnson and her daughter. I want to put this challenge to each one of you as commissioners. That lady rode the bus without having public transportation or a driver's license all this time and work for everybody and all the jobs you had. I challenge all of us to one day get up in the morning, get on the bus and go to work. And whatever you gotta do in your day of appointments, whether the bus can take you there or you take a Uber, do that. And then at the end of your day, take that bus back home or another bus and just experience what I call a Lizzie Day. That's my challenge to you. All right,
Take it to church on Sundays.
there it is. Okay.
I'm good. Yes.
All right, I'll need the rebel and say a couple things. There's mainly one ditto to everything you just said. But secondly, really appreciate Dr. Schneider and your team's responses to all the constituents that have reached out to my office in regards to some of the changes regarding the Lake Ridge routes. There's been some consternation, some angst here and there about folks, suddenly their route's different, or there's a block in time they weren't used to in gap service. So really appreciate your guys' attention to that. You continue to monitor that as we move forward. Thank you so much.
I don't have much. I did want to just say that we are in September, obviously. So on Monday at 10 o'clock, Stafford County is having our 9/11 ceremony. So if anyone would like to come, you know, is listening or around the area, we would be grateful to have you with us. And that's all. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, that's right. That's right. Commissioner Allen.
No, no. I'm good.
All right. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, the time is now 7:47. Nice flight, plane, anyway. And this meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.